Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CISO Corner. I'm Dane Dittemore with DataBank, and along with me, of course, is our Chief Information Security Officer, Mark Houpt. Hi, Mark.
Hey Dane, how you doing today?
I am fantastic, as always,
Good.
and today is a good day. Yes, for sure. Well, today's topic is trust but verify, the normalization of security operations. Now, this kind of makes me think about how accessing applications that we use every day requires multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. Um, making a mortgage payment, checking how many paid days off you have, opening up an email, etc. And so here's my question. Is two-factor authentication here to stay? And should IT leaders integrate other verification practices into the workflows?
So you want to go down the path of Davrai na pravai, trust but verify, the old Russian proverb made famous by President Reagan. More than happy to do so today. Dane, it is my pleasure to be with you. And yes, let's talk about two-factor authentication. Is it here to stay? No. To be honest with you, it's here. We're going to be a three-factor or four-factor authentication before you know it. But two-factor authentication is very effective today, no doubt, even though people have already found ways to circumvent that or to hack into that. And the reason I say that it's not here to stay, but it is here to stay is simply because anytime you have a security control, anytime you have something in place that is preventing the bad guys to get in, I don't care whether it's on your car, on your home, in your cyber life, whatever it is, the bad guys want something bad enough, they're going to find a way to get around that and get in. And so is two-factor authentication here to stay? Yeah, for the short term it is. It's just like encryption, okay? Many years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we had 128-bit encryption, and that was the bee's knees back then, and nobody could hack into that. And then somebody did academically and then proved it with quantum type of computing, and so now then we had to move to 256-bit encryption or an RSA version of that. So we're going to constantly see people try to hack around it and try to see people get around it. In fact, this summer we saw multiple incidents where, although two-factor authentication was very effective, the way that they're working on getting around it is through what's called MFA fatigue. And MFA fatigue, we all know that when we're using two-factor authentication, we'll get a message on our phone, or we'll get a text message, or we'll have an app on our phone that pops up. Well, these attackers have learned through MFA fatigue that if they continually hit the system, they continually hit your VPN and then cause the multi-factor authentication to go off, that eventually you're going to get tired of it and you're going to just hit accept to make it go away. And that's what happened with two separate attacks this summer that were only effective because of multi-factor authentication fatigue. Not because the technology failed, it's because the people behind that failed. And that's really where the focus on attacking multi-factor authentication is right now.
Yeah, well, do you have any data, or is there any data to indicate the protective value of these verification methods? I mean, do we know how many negative events were thwarted?
Oh, I can tell you that just negative events were thwarted just this morning. On my own personal bank account, somebody's trying to hack in, and luckily a second factor scenario was able to prevent them. So, do I have any specific data where I can point you to a Pew Research or a Barna Research or even a academic research right off the top of my head? I don't, but I know for fact they're out there because this thing has been studied over and over again. And it wouldn't be such an ingrained piece of our security culture to have multi-factor authentication if it weren't something that was very effective. I could even tell you that multi-factor authentication is not new. When I was in the military 30 years ago, um, some of our most classified data was maintained in physical safes that had two different combination locks on them. One person had one combination and another person had the other combination. That's an old version of multi-factor authentication.
Right.
I
Right.
had to give mine, they had to give theirs, and the two shall never meet, right? And so back then we called it two-person integrity. Within the finance world, you have multi-factor action and multi-factor authentication type of scenarios where they call it separation of duties. So in other words, a check of a certain value above a certain value cannot be written without two signatures on it, or it cannot even be cashed without two signatures or something like that. It is so ingrained into everything that we do, not just in cyber world, that we know that that's a high security value. That yes, there's plenty of research out there. There's not one particular paper that I can go and say, read that one and that will be the end all. It's just a fact.
Right. Right. Well, do we keep track of that at all within DataBank?
Yeah,
Within like
absolutely.
IDS, IPS, or any of the
Mhm.
compliance regulations that we adhere to?
Yeah, so we adhere to FedRAMP with the NIST 853 types of controls. We also are beginning to adhere to the ISO 27001 controls, and also banking regulation controls such as the GLBA, medical side of things with HIPAA, PCI DSS again with credit cards. So the way that we can track that, and in fact, we can tell how many attempts were involved in an attack is we use Duo for multi-factor authentication, both internally at DataBank, but also with our customers. And we also use Okta that has multi-factor authentication as part of it. And what we could do, and what we do is we go into the logs and we see if there's more than one attempt, there's a string of attempts, then we can see that an attack has been thwarted. And versus, one time it just may be a matter of somebody entering the
Right.
wrong response code, because multi-factor authentication can come in different forms. Personally, I think a lot of people will find this both useful and surprising, but I don't use the app that's on the phone in order to have multi-factor authentication on my computer. I use SMS or text messaging, and I know that text messaging, some people say that text messaging can be hacked, but in order to do that, you have to take the SIM card out of the phone and or duplicate the SIM card on another phone in order to receive the text message. It takes quite a bit of effort to do that right now. But the reason I use the text messaging format is because if I ever lose my phone, if my phone ever crashes, like what happened in September, I had a phone, it completely crashed, and I went that very morning and replaced the phone, but I didn't have to worry about re-authenticating the phone and doing other things, because
Right. Right.
to get that app working again, because my SMS text messages were still coming in to the new phone. So yes, we can look at data. We do look at data, and when we see that it's a string of 4 or 5 sequential type of attempts to get in and failed, then we know that someone is attempting, or we suspect that someone is attempting to use multi-factor authentication in order to attack our environment, and they're failing at it.
Yeah. Well, Mark, it's great to know, obviously, that you and others here at DataBank are looking out for us and our clients. But that's a wrap for episode 15. For those of you who are listening and would like to be notified when the next CISO Corner podcast is released, or if you have a topic that you'd like Mark and I to address, just drop us an email at CISO@databank.com. That's CISO@databank.com. And as always, be safe and stay secure.